SUVs. They're almost made out to be the enemy of the enthusiast. But everybody wants one. I want one. And so far, when people ask me which one they should buy, when normal people ask me which one they should buy, my answer usually has been the Korean.
The Greta and the Seltos, two perfect cars for Indian roads, filled with tech, look fancy, and are relatively bulletproof.
But if you are an enthusiast and you must get one, then this is my personal choice.
The Taigun. Volkswagen's take on the compact SUV is just right. Sized correctly for a small family, goes like stink, and it looks great, especially at night.
Which is why it's only obvious to have my choice go up against the new kid on the block. You know, I come from one of those families that strictly used to believe in Japan's automotive supremacy.
And they did it cheaper than everybody else, although this isn't exactly what you'd call cheap. At 19,65,000 rupees ex-showroom, this is expensive. The version you see on your screen right here, and of course it is the top spec hybrid.
And yet, this is guaranteed to sell like hotcakes. Why?
Now let's not forget, Maruti knows a thing or two about making fun cars. The Swift, fun. Ignis, fun. Baleno, fun. And I'm not even going to start talking about legendary cars from the past like the Zen or the Gypsy.
So is there any fun left in this ultra sensible package, and can this hold a candle to that benchmark?
Bang, 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 come back. Every man, every woman hyped on the track. Bang, 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 come back. Every man, every woman hyped on the track.
1.5 TSI, 150 horsepower engine, purring away nicely at highway speeds. And if you're gentle on the throttle, you get cylinder deactivation, which means it's only running on 2 cylinders. And that's great. That's more fuel economy. But it loves being driven hard. It loves being pushed slightly. It enjoys all of that. And it really, really feels like a 20 lakh plus rupee car in here. It reeks of quality. It feels like my money has gone to a good place. Well, if it was my money that I was using, I mean.
And I guess that's what the Germans really go for. That mental peace you get from a car designed by the Germans is almost unparalleled. It is something that has been most certainly missing.
Let me tell you a quick story about how great the performance on this is. I had this once on an open runway with obviously no speed limit, and I pushed it all the way to the max. And yes, I saw speeds well above the speed limit. In fact, it started with a 2. That's saying something, isn't it? Anyways, should we now swap seats? You know, when I first drove the Grand Vitara a couple of weeks ago, I really did think it was made exceedingly well. And I still think so. In fact, it's almost as good as the Taigun. And in some cases, some places, it's better than the Taigun. A Maruti that's more well-built than a Volkswagen. 10 years ago, if I said that statement, you would have never believed me. But believe me now, because it's true.
Now, while the Taigun uses turbo power to give its 1.5 some juice, this uses the diametric opposite.
Ha! Turbos, so 1980s. We are in 2022, it's the hybrid era. No, it's the electrified era. And I like technology, I like moving ahead with technology, but in this case, technology just doesn't seem to work. I would have loved if this beat the pants of the turbocharged Taigun, but it doesn't.
There is no other way of putting it. As we've said before, it is slow. It gets off to a good start and it will cruise at sub triple digit speeds all day without breaking a sweat, but ask any more out of it and it starts to run out of breath really quickly.
It's almost like an athlete who got an absolutely killer start in a 100-meter sprint and then gets winded up and ends up being last. Reminds me of all my childhood school sports days, to be honest.
So yes, if horsepower was your only judge of how fun a car can be, this video is done right here. But fun behind the wheel isn't all about horsepower. It's about something more, because as the all-important saying from Initial D goes, any fool can drive fast in a straight line. And if it is fun we have to judge, it's how these cars will handle corners that will really set them apart.
So here's the thing, this is where the Grand Vitara should shine, and this is where also the lack of outright power should not be very obvious. Well, at least on flatter surfaces going around the bend. Oh, dear God. Okay, I just did that reaction because the turn-in and the steering setup on this car, it feels a little lighter than the Taigun, but my God, it's so precise. This feels like one of those early Swifts to drive. It feels so composed. It feels nice and planted. There's no obvious understeer. What a chassis. What a phenomenal chassis. That is completely superseded by the fact that this thing just doesn't have enough horsepower. I mean, look at this. On the flatter curves, this thing absolutely handled, but show it a slight incline and it just dies. It's just doing nothing. This is so... It's not disappointing, it's heartbreaking, because this thing can handle so much more. You know what? That Taigun so far has been the benchmark, isn't it? I think the benchmark has shifted. If only it had a more powerful engine. You know, I really did think that today the Grand Vitara would take over the mantle of the benchmark in this segment when it came to fun driving dynamics, but sadly, no, it's still this. And it's all because of that engine. It's all because of how the engine and the chassis are working together as one cohesive unit. And that's what's important. Not just one part doing its job really well and the other part letting it down. It's the dynamic of the whole platform, the dynamic of the whole product. It's product integration. It's chassis integration into the engine's integration into the chassis, and just everything. Me integrated into this. This then is still the winner. In terms of sheer joy to drive, by far, this is still the winner. That's very close, if only that had a nicer engine. Okay, now before we do get to sort of a conclusion between both these cars, I need to talk about equipment lists, because after all, we are in 2022 and people do need to be kept happy even if your car is a bit of a go-kart. Now, let's talk about similarities first. So, both get cool seats, both have great infotainment with the obvious Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and stuff like that, and both have a very nice digital instrument cluster as well. But then this bullies itself ahead by packing just so much more. Heads-up display, a 360-degree parking camera setup as compared to a normal reverse parking camera, and of course you have standard sunroof and the gigantic panoramic roof that this one gets.
And apart from the boot, which is smaller because this particular one is a hybrid, it is more spacious too, and it feels a little bit more airier on the inside as well. So that's an overall win. Well, now let's go back to fun.
You know, if I had to put my logical thinking cap on, something that I think I've lost somewhere on the way, I'd say this is a more fun package. Why? Because, well, it has better fuel economy, and that means you save more money to do things that you actually like doing, apart from driving the car, of course. But we are a car channel, and as much as I'd like to talk endlessly about rap music and sneakers and watches and model cars and food. We need to slow down. I need to slow down and talk more about these two cars and give you guys a bit of a definitive verdict.
I really came in with a clear head thinking that the Grand Vitara will have an ace up its sleeve once we drive it a little bit longer. And it does. It is likable in the way everybody likes vanilla ice cream. But the Taigun is a banana split. You don't need an occasion to drive it. Every time you drive it, it makes you feel like it is an occasion. But, and I must say this again, the chassis in that Grand Vitara is mind-blowing. It's insanely good. And if it had more power, this verdict, which is for now in the corner of the Taigun, would have been completely 100% the other way around.